On her wedding day, an amazing police dog stopped her. What he revealed will touch your heart. The sun cast a golden light across Willow Creek, bathing the chapel in warmth as Sarah stood poised for her dream day. Her stunning white dress billowed gently in the breeze, and the smiles of her community wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. Years of love and labor had brought her to this moment, but as she stood at the entrance, surrounded by joy and laughter, an unexpected commotion sliced through the air. Rex, the beloved police dog with a reputation for bravery, charged through the gathering, his handler struggling behind him. Confusion erupted among the guests, as Rex, full of anticipation, launched himself towards Sarah. She couldn't help but be caught in a whirl of surprise and amusement. The aura of blissful expectation shifted, leaving something unspoken swimming in the tension. Before she could collect her thoughts, Rex dropped a pouch at her feet, a small but significant reminder of her father, the police officer who had passed away before she fully understood his world. As curiosity brewed inside her, Sarah knelt, her heart racing with uncertainty. Inside the pouch was a flash drive, its meaning cloaked in mystery. Memories swirled like whispers in her mind, tightening her chest. What could it contain? She glanced up at her mother, whose unwavering love had shaped her into the woman she was today. The odds of achieving her dreams hung at a precarious balance, pursuing a future in the nearby city or embracing her father's legacy of loyalty and service. Would he be proud of her choices? Would she disappoint him? Taking a deep breath, Sarah plugged the flash drive into her phone. Instantly, letters from her father emerged, words filled with wisdom, despair, and pride. Each letter was a snapshot of moments in her life she'd buried deep, exploring the burdens of expectations he carried for her. Her father's voice resonated with resilience, yet a pang of guilt surged through her. What would he think if she left? Just as those thoughts overtook her, she felt her knees become weak, the weight of anticipation blending with emotional turbulence. Glancing around, she saw her friends' curious faces, each of them holding their breath, yearning for clarity. The expectation was almost tangible. Would she betray her roots? Before she could respond, every word unleashed led to immediate self-reflection. Could she provide her community with the commitment her father would have wanted? Were her dreams selfish or courageous? The pangs of ambition battled with her longing for family ties, embroiling her in a chaotic internal struggle. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. An emotional fog settled over her as the last words faded, leaving a deafening silence. Her mother stepped into view, tears glistening on her cheeks, a haunting reminder of their fraught past. The air thickened with a mix of anticipation and despair. With Rex sitting loyally at her side, the choice narrowed to an unbearable conclusion. Should she honor her father's legacy, rooted firmly in loyalty, or chase a newer life, one he may not understand? The realization of the impossible choice loomed large, constricting her every thought. The reverberating whispers of what could be clashed violently with what had always been, leaving her teetering on the precipice of a future that would forever alter the course of her life. How would she reconcile her heartache with the promise of love still to come? The silence hung in the air thick with expectation, rattling Sarah's composure. Rex's presence, so comforting moments ago, felt more like a reminder of her father's unwavering expectations. She sensed the weight of the letters lingering in her mind, the fight of ambition battling against obligation leaving her dizzy. Now, as her guests shifted restlessly, their faces displaying a mixture of concern and curiosity, Sarah's heart pounded like a drum in her ears. What would satisfy her father's pride? What would her mother's tears truly mean for her future? The imperfect blend of sadness and love carved a chasm of uncertainty in her heart. Sarah. The voice of her mother coaxed, tremulous yet powerful. Do you need a moment? The question broke through Sarah's fog, snapping her back to reality. She wanted to scream, to let the inner turmoil spill forth, but instead, her eyes found Rex again. There was a spark of loyalty, a promise of steadfastness echoing in the dog's gaze. Perhaps the answer lay in that loyalty, a deeper understanding of what commitment meant, not just to her family but to herself. Taking a deep breath, she pointed toward the chapel, her voice steadier than she felt. "Let's take this inside." She needed to regain some control, to process the flood of emotions that threatened to engulf her. The guests shuffled into the chapel, but Sarah lingered a moment longer, the flash drive still plugged into her phone. She wanted to absorb her father's wisdom before making the biggest decision of her life. As she read the letters anew, each word beamed clarity into her heart, stripping away layers of expectation. Her father had shown her not just the weight of duty, but also the strength of vulnerability, the true bravery in making decisions that light one's path. "I wanted you to embrace life fully, Sarah," one letter began, echoing a mantra she had long dismissed. "Chase your dreams, but let them grow with your roots. Find a way to do both." Tension slithered through her, the edges of her resolve sharpened. Perhaps she had been looking at her dreams too linearly, grappling with the choices as oppositional, when in truth, they could intertwine. She wouldn't have to throw away her father's legacy to forge her own path. Inside the chapel, her guests were sitting expectantly, yet her mother's expression morphed from anxious to hopeful. The realization struck harder. Sarah wasn't alone in this. Everyone had desires, ambitions, and fears. Among those seated was her best friend Mia, who had faced her immense academic struggles, eventually finding strength and purpose in her community work. It was then that Sarah understood that her story could be different, not a rejection of her father's ideals, but a reimagining. "Thank you for your patience," Sarah began, her voice steady now, surprising even herself. The room hushed, an expectant energy crackled around her. "I want to honor my father's legacy, but I also want to pursue my dreams." As she spoke, she felt a swell of courage lift her chest, words rushing out in a torrent. Each declaration felt right, a declaration of full self-acceptance. She would reclaim ownership over her choices, balancing the past with her envisioned future. A blend of loyalty and ambition, this was her decision. But just as she steadied her gaze, locked in the resolve to embrace both worlds, a figure in the back of the chapel shifted. The unsettling familiarity of that presence sent tremors through Sarah. A flash of recognition sparked fear as she realized who it was. Would that shadowed figure threaten the very future she was determined to create? Turning her thoughts into actions, Sarah prepared to confront not just the embodiment of her past, but also the insecurities of her burgeoning future. The moment had come to face her truth. The figure, shrouded by the dim light filtering through the stained glass, brought the room to a standstill. Sarah's heart raced as her mind whirled with uncertainty. She couldn't afford to falter now, not with all those eyes on her. Each person seated had come to celebrate, yet there was a sudden electric tension that wrapped around her throat, constricting her voice. She had just declared her desire to honor her father while carving her own destiny, and this presence posed a looming threat to that fragile resolve. As she stepped forward, her focus narrowed on the figure. Clarity wrested control from her chaotic thoughts. With every stride, the distant rhythm of her heartbeat aligned with a newfound purpose. She was not just a daughter caught in the web of familial expectations. She was a young woman determined to redefine her path, no matter the weight of legacy pressing upon her shoulders. "Elliot," she called out, her voice steady, despite the tremors echoing within her. The recognition of both the name and its bearer, their long-shared history, was an anchor in the storm of her emotions. There he stood, her childhood friend, whose ambitions had crumbled under the burden of external pressures. His pale blue eyes met hers. A mixture of defiance and resignation flickered in that gaze, just as it had in their past. "I didn't think you'd have the courage to face this," he countered, sarcasm dripping from his tone. But there was a tremor beneath it that suggested a deeper insecurity. In the pause that followed, Sarah's resolve solidified. She finally understood. This confrontation was a reflection of her ongoing battle against doubt and fear of failure, qualities she had once shared with him, now affirming the different paths they had taken. "You don't get to define my courage, Elliot. Nor should you underestimate me," she replied, the fierceness of her words surprising even herself. The timid girl who often deferred to others had transformed in the crucible of her father's teachings and in the depths of her recent realizations. "Why shouldn't I?" he retorted, crossing his arms defensively. "You're still chasing shadows, and those can't fill the void." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah asserted, her voice rising with conviction. "I'm chasing dreams I've long shied away from, and I finally know they can coexist with my legacy. I refuse to be trapped by the fears we fostered together." Elliot's expression softened slightly, undertones of vulnerability breaking through the surface hostility. He may have initially posed a challenge, a vessel for her long-standing insecurities, but now he was also an opportunity for reflection. Sarah realized she needed this moment. She needed to dissect her feelings and confront the fears that had lingered between them, which had haunted her thoughts endlessly. His silence spoke volumes as the chapel filled with anticipation. Her words were calling forth something greater than just a personal revelation. They signaled her transformation. With every declaration, she was not just evolving, but creating a narrative steeped in ownership and authenticity. "Elliot, life is not about choosing one dream over another. It's about growth, balance, and the courage to forge new paths. I may carry the weight of my father's legacy, but I'll do so on my own terms." As the last words hung heavily in the air, the revelation struck her. This was more than a dialogue. It was an unveiling of hidden potential within herself that she had scarcely grasped before. There was strength in vulnerability, and in that moment, Sarah felt it ripple through her. Yet, the atmosphere tensed again as an unexpected trickle of movement drew her attention back to the back of the chapel. Another figure was inching into the light, someone whose presence she never anticipated. Who could it be? Her instincts flared, and uncertainty flooded back in, spinning her thoughts into a whirlwind. Could this newcomer disrupt everything she had just built courageously, or was it an ally emerging at just the right moment? The stakes were undeniably rising. The newcomer stepped fully into the light, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. A woman with striking features, dark hair pulled taut and a posture that screamed authority, glided toward them. Her presence was magnetic, commanding attention from the guests who shifted in their seats. Recognition flickered within Sarah. This was Agent Monroe, a figure of enforcement in their small town, a woman reputed for her thorough investigations and formidable reputation. "What is she doing here?" Sarah whispered, half to herself and half to Elliot, who was equally wide-eyed. The weight of uncertainty resumed its grip, boiling over with echoes of her earlier resolve. Monroe's gaze swept across the room, landing on Sarah, signaling that she sought a direct confrontation. An agent of law was not something Sarah had anticipated amidst a personal journey of self-definition. Was this an interruption, or a pivotal turning point in her quest for autonomy? "Sarah, I need to speak with you," Monroe asserted, striding forward with purpose. The certainty in her tone was unsettling. Before Sarah could formulate a response, she could already sense the implications of the conversation ahead. "Is this about my father's legacy?" Sarah pressed, her heart thundering at the realization that her path might be further scrutinized under the glaring light of authority. Would she now have to defend not only her identity, but also the very foundation upon which she was building her future? "No, not in the way you think." Monroe's voice softened, but the determination remained. "We have reason to believe that your father's affairs are tied to something darker than expected." Each word fell like a heavy stone within Sarah, creating ripples of doubt, penetrating the resistance she had forged only moments before. Elliot stepped closer, a hint of protectiveness breaking through his earlier cynicism. "What are you implying?" The agent directed her gaze back at him. "I'm not here to discuss your feelings, Elliot. I'm here for Sarah. This is bigger than both of you, and if you care about her, you'll let me speak." The implosion of newfound independence clashed violently with this emerging sense of threat. Sarah could feel the familiar tendrils of doubt slanking into her thoughts like weeds taking root. The memory of her father's teachings cascaded through her mind. There was both a painful nostalgia and a resolve blossoming against the vulnerability she was feeling. "Is this about the construction project? Are you saying that he was involved in something illegal?" Sarah's voice wavered, tethered between determination and fear. The construction site was supposed to be a beacon of her father's legacy, not a cornerstone of a potential scandal. Monroe nodded, grim determination painted on her face. We've uncovered discrepancies, money funneled where it shouldn't have been. If you want to honor your father, you need to understand the truth. The room felt oppressive, and Sarah's thoughts scrambled for clarity. This confrontation was not simply an external conflict to navigate, but an intense personal reckoning that echoed the walls of uncertainty she had just begun to dismantle. How could she forge her path in the light of this revelation? I will have to investigate this, Monroe continued, her voice steady. But I need your cooperation. The implications of a partnership loomed, inviting fear but also an unexpected sense of agency. Would her courage bend under the pressure of family secrets, or would she rise amid the ambiguity, turning this chaos into a catalyst for her evolution? A flicker of determination ignited within her. I want the truth too. Sarah's internal resolution was harsh and blunt, providing no cover for fear, only a clear path ahead. The agency was a weighty burden to accept, and as she stood staring back at Monroe, she felt spun between past and future. Would confronting her family's legacy drag her into darkness, or could she weave a narrative that reframed the shadows as allies in her quest for authenticity? In that swift moment of decision, Sarah understood. The stakes were not just the legacy of her father, but the composition of her own identity amidst emerging truths. With a shared glance, Elliot shifted his weight, steeling himself alongside her. An unspoken alliance resurfaced in the midst of tension, drawing strength from the fragility hanging in the air. But before the full implications could manifest, a bell chimed from outside, beckoning both attention and urgency. What awaited them outside could alter the course of the narrative they were collectively crafting. Her heart surged as she grappled with the unpredictable landscape of choices that lay ahead. Would she confront the shadows of truth or forge them anew? Each direction came with its own risks, and the path forward was unclear, thickening the tension in her chest. As the bell's chime echoed into the room, a hushed silence enveloped the gathering. Sarah's focus darted from Agent Monroe to Elliot, her internal compass spinning wildly. The urgency tacked onto the atmosphere transformed the impending conversation into a surreal moment that felt suspended in time. Monroe, sensing the shift, stepped closer to Sarah, her expression sharpening with resolve. This is not a game, Sarah. The information I have could implicate your father in something much larger than local mismanagement, she implored, her voice carrying the weight of responsibility. The words slashed through the dim light of the room, igniting a fire of indignation within Sarah. You think I don't know that my father was flawed? He was human. But I refuse to let his mistakes dictate the legacy he left behind. Defiance wrapped around her, each assertion a thread in the fabric of her identity she needed to weave anew. Fighting against the tide of chaos rising within her, Sarah felt her breath hitch, a tension brewing in her chest. Was this determination or mere bravado fooling herself into believing she could carry the weight of the truth? She was not here to collapse under the expectations hewn from shadows of the past. Listen, Monroe murmured, noting Sarah's tightening jaw. I'm not asking you to excuse anything. I need you to empower yourself with the truth, because the truth will guide you towards healing and reclaiming your father's legacy, whatever that may be. A flicker of doubt clouded Sarah's mind, weaving through her resolve as the enormity of the situation unfurled before her. Could she bear the full weight of the truth? What if the shadows were a deep-seated scandal that would shatter the foundation she desperately sought to reclaim? Just then, the sound of footsteps charged downstairs beyond the door, punctuating the tension, a quick rhythm transforming into a hurried thud that disrupted their reckoning. Sarah's heart raced, her intuition surging. Curiosity merged with instinct, demanding answers. What awaited them? Stay close to me, Elliot murmured, his protective instinct rising as he sensed the collective uncertainty. It was a promise, a tether that, while fragile, brought a flicker of comfort amidst turmoil. With a collective breath, they stepped towards the door. But before Sarah could fully grasp the implications of her next move, she caught Monroe's eyes again. This is your chance, Sarah, not just to confront the past, but to seize your future. You are more than your father's legacy. As the door swung open, revealing a bustling scene outside, Sarah's grip tightened on the threshold. The sun bathed the porch in golden light, illuminating figures gathered together, local residents drawn by the commotion. Their expectant faces transformed the everyday into something monumental. Was this an audience in waiting, or a catalyst for her eventual revelations? One figure emerged from the crowd, but the rush of adrenaline redefined her reality. His uniform shimmered, announcing his presence, a police officer balancing authority with an unshakable calmness. It was clear he had important information vital to both her past and possible future. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, beckoning her with a nod, his trust in this unexpected alliance evident in his steady gaze. Every ounce of yearning to unveil her father's truth rushed forward, colliding with a growing sense of self-determination. Underneath the gathering cloud of tension, Sarah took a step forward, feeling the gravitational pull of agency pull her toward the pivotal confrontation ahead. She was no longer on the outskirts of her own life. She was stepping directly into its core. Could she navigate this intersection of past betrayals and present truths to shape her identity? Or would she be swallowed whole by the revelations that beckoned like shadows yearning to be understood? As the officer continued to speak, her heart pumped with a new urgency, underscoring the gravity of choice that lay ahead. What revelations awaited her, and how would they challenge the foundation she had aimed to secure? The officer's presence jolted Sarah from her thoughts, yanking her back to the unfolding moment. "Let's find somewhere private to talk," he suggested, surveying the crowd with an authoritative glance. Her instinct urged her to comply. Secrets waited in quiet corners, and she was desperate to uncover their truths. As they pushed through the gathering, the noise of chatter and the swell of voices faded into a distant hum. The urgency in the officer's manner heightened Sarah's sense of purpose. This was a turning point, the moment she had unconsciously been building toward. The truth, no matter how painful, would sculpt her path forward. They stepped into a nearby room, a small, dimly lit office filled with scattered papers and framed photos. The officer closed the door behind them, sealing off the world outside. "I'm Officer Beckett," he declared, his voice steady and unyielding. "We need to discuss your father's involvement in an investigation that could have far-reaching implications." Sarah's stomach twisted at the mention of her father. He had been many things, flawed, human, yet loyal. The idea of his name intertwined with scandal felt like a physical weight bearing down on her. "What do you know?" she demanded, her voice firm but edged with trepidation. Beckett glanced down as he collected his thoughts, a subtle shift that suggested the complexity of the information he held. "A file from the precinct came to light recently. It tied your father to a series of questionable dealings, ones that go beyond mere local mismanagement. We're talking about corruption at the state level, involving a network that many didn't even suspect existed." The words landed like heavy stones, each one instilling doubt and fear. Could her father have been entangled in something so sordid? She wrestled with the resurgence of her defiance, the impulse to defend him against these allegations. But the very truth she had sought to reclaim was now urging her to confront a mirror that reflected a troubling possibility. "Why come to me now?" she questioned, forcing clarity through her turmoil. "If you have this information, why not take it to the authorities?" Beckett's eyes met hers with a weight that felt haunting. "Because I believe you deserve to hear it first. There are those within the department who would rather sweep this under the rug. But they don't understand the damage their silence will cause, not just to you, but to the community." The walls of the office felt increasingly claustrophobic as the implications crystallized in her mind. Sarah's identity felt vulnerable, a piece of her heart tethered to a past she was barely beginning to understand. "I have to know the truth," she whispered, the resolve solidifying within her. "For my father's sake, and for my own." Beckett nodded, appreciating her growing determination and shift in perspective. "There's more. I've been following leads, and the deeper I go, the more it looks like your father wasn't acting alone. There are others who might be implicated." The revelation stung, each word amplifying the noise in her mind. Sarah was a web of conflicting loyalties, her father's legacy versus her own burgeoning identity. Each thread represented a decision, a flicker of her future, and the stakes were escalating. "What do you need from me?" she asked, a 12-dimensional weight pressing against her shoulders, but the urgency of her inquiry propelled her forward. "I need you to trust me," he answered, the gravity in his tone calling for confidence, while his eyes shone with sincerity. "We need to approach this delicately. There are powerful players at hand, and with your relationship to your father, we might have a chance to uncover the entire truth without it going public." Yet, caught between terror and determination, Sarah realized the journey ahead was more than just a confrontation with her father's past. It was about discovering her own strength. By embracing the chaos, could she define what her legacy truly represented? As she processed this newfound clarity, the question echoed in her mind. Would the shadows of family history shape her resolve, or could she transform them into luminous paths for her interpretation of truth? Beckett's voice broke through her contemplation. "We can start gathering evidence tomorrow. Are you prepared for what we might find?" Her heart galloped in response, buoyed by a thrill of purpose. "Yes," Sarah breathed, feeling the narrative of her life shift. The moment to confront her fears arrived, suspending reality in place as she stepped towards an inevitable confrontation. Would she find clarity, or merely deepen the turmoil? The stakes had never felt higher. Sarah took a deep breath, her resolve solidifying in the wake of Officer Beckett's revelation. The weight of what lay ahead felt like a siege on her senses, but she also recognized that she was standing at the precipice of something transformative. Gathering evidence wasn't merely about uncovering her father's actions. It was a critical voyage into her own identity, a quest to redefine who she was beyond the legacy of her family. The night turned into a sleepless void, each tick of the clock a relentless reminder of the hours before she would face the facts. She couldn't escape the twin specters of doubt and determination that loomed overhead, each battling fiercely for her attention, each claiming rightful ownership to her narrative. The chaos was invigorating, propelling her toward clarity in ways she hadn't anticipated. With the first light of dawn slicing through her window, Sarah dressed deliberately, choosing resilience embodied in crisp lines and earthy tones. There was a nervous energy buzzing beneath her skin, a reminder that her decisions from this moment would ripple far beyond her own conception of herself. As she made her way to meet Beckett, her mind raced with possibilities. Would she find answers that shattered the comfortable image she had constructed of her father? Or would some fragment of him, distorted by allegations, emerge and shift her understanding of loyalty and love? The precinct buzzed with an unsettling ambivalence. Activity thrummed through the air, punctuated by the sharp commands of the officers who passed her by. Each gesture felt charged, almost conspiratorial, as if everyone were holding on to secrets and whispers she had yet to discover. Beckett awaited her at a table secluded from the main commotion, his expression increasingly serious. He gestured for her to sit, his body language a mix of protective finesse and deep concern. "I appreciate you coming here. Let's just get to it," she said, her tone laced with an urgency that surprised even herself. "What's the next step?" The officer unfolded several documents before her, papers pinned with meticulous notes and highlighted passages that caught her eye and stirred her insecurities. "The timeline's crucial. Here. This shows your father wasn't just an isolated player. Connections span several departments. This isn't just about you. It's a network of corruption that stretches far." As Sarah scanned the papers, her heartbeat quickened. Each name and date was a pulse within a living organism that had thrived under her father's shadow. "What are you asking from me? I mean beyond trust?" "Your insight," he replied, leaning in as if lowering his voice could shield them from the greater world outside. "You know your father better than anyone. If we can decode his patterns of behavior, we might find a way to gain leverage without unfolding a public scandal." The stakes escalated, visions of betrayal combining with flashes of the warm memories of her father. Her gut twisted. "You want me to help expose him?" "Not expose," he clarified with intensity. "To understand. To navigate through the complexities. We might find ways to show that your father acted under coercion, or possibly even as a pawn in a larger game." The prospect rattled her. Sarah was cagey, the heartache of his potential culpability pressing against her will to preserve her family's dignity. But the professional aspect of this, her goal to seek truth, began to eclipse her primitive fears. Then that's what we'll do. We'll find the evidence and unravel whatever this is, but I won't compromise who I am in the process. Exactly, Beckett affirmed, a hint of admiration lacing his response. You're not stepping back into your father's shadow. You're illuminating your path forward. Determination blossomed within her, emboldened by the alliance formed in the burning coals of familial chaos. She felt as if she was unfurling from a constricting bud, ready to bloom, ready to confront what was expected of her as daughter, and what she truly wanted to be, a woman defined by her own choices and not dictated by past misdeeds. This journey was unveiling hidden strengths she hadn't recognized in herself. Each piece of information she absorbed renewed her vigor to confront the emotional turmoil and head into the unknown. As they delved into the depths of the investigation, a cold knot settled in Sarah's stomach. What if the revelations became too heavy to bear? The moment she would need to confront her father loomed ahead, a turning point teetering on the brink of reality and dread. Take a moment, Beckett advised softly, sensing her turmoil. We'll compile what we find and then strategize our approach. It's about patience. The truth won't reveal itself overnight. Sarah nodded, but felt her mind rattled by the echoes of uncertainty. Would she be ready to face her father with courage? Or would the confrontation morph into an abyss of unanswered questions and grief? As they prepared for the arduous work ahead, a thought began to unfurl like a vine in her consciousness. A query that might just be the catalyst for everything yet to come. What if the truth was more than just damning evidence? What if, in its revelation, she discovered the potential to reclaim her father's legacy in an entirely uncharted light? Would light dispel darkness, or would it merely cast longer shadows? Yet despite the dread swirling within, one truth stood out unwaveringly. The task at hand wouldn't just redefine her father's role in her life, it would inevitably define her own. The following morning, a sense of expectation pulsed through Sarah as she stepped into the precinct once more. The case now felt electric with potential, as if it might draw her deeper into the vibration of who she was becoming. She brushed a hand through her hair, the routine action somehow reinforcing the conviction she had forged overnight. Beckett was already at the same table, poring over files littered with names and allegations. He looked up, his expression shifting from somber to resolute as she approached. Good to see you back, Sarah. Ready to dive in? Absolutely, she replied, her voice steady. The enthusiasm that coursed through her surprised her. It had transformed from mere curiosity into a burgeoning determination to uncover the truth. She flipped through the documents, absorbing the details of a dark, interconnected web involving her father's dealings. Each connection revealed something new, something she could question further. We should begin with this one, Beckett said, pointing at a name linked to illicit contracts. Victor Hayes. He's connected to multiple transactions, and he seems to have a direct line to your father. The knot in her stomach returned but twisted differently now. It was a mix of fear and resolve. Do we have anything on how they knew each other? Working on that. I think we might need to interview some former colleagues of your father's. They could provide valuable insights. The prospect sent a jolt of uncertainty through her. You want me to talk to people who might know more than I do? What if they don't want to share? That's why I'm here, Beckett reassured her. But your relationship with those people could give us access that we otherwise wouldn't have. Trust your instincts. Sarah took a moment to absorb that. These gatherings could steer her toward enlightenment or despair. Yet the more she contemplated, the more that familiar spark ignited within her, a flicker of courage that countered her fear. This wasn't just about bringing justice, but seeking her own version of clarity. All right, let's set it up, she said, her voice firm and unwavering. As days passed, the investigation molded her into a more assertive version of herself. Each interaction felt charged with a potency she hadn't experienced before. The load of familial ties and the weight of potential betrayal converged in unexpected moments, but confronting her father's colleagues only bolstered her resolve. One afternoon, she found herself sitting across from Emma, a former secretary at the firm where her father worked. The woman's manner was cautious, but softened by flares of warmth as they documented her knowledge. Your father was always focused, you know. But sometimes, he changed when Victor was around. I sensed something was off, but... Sarah held her breath. But... Emma hesitated, searching for the right words amidst the unsaid. It was like a shadow fell over him. He was different, distant. It worried me. The pieces began to tumble into place, forming ominous images of her father's demeanor unfurling in the presence of someone like Victor Hayes. The sensitive tug-of-war between loyalty and truth wrestled within her. What about coercion? Did you ever see anyone pressuring him? I can't be sure, Emma replied carefully. But there were whispers. The sound echoed through Sarah's mind as she fought to contain her emotions. It forced her to consider the possibility of her father entangled in something larger than himself. An innocent caught within twisted dealings. Could this be the opportunity to reconstruct her father's identity, the light he had obscured? Returning to the precinct, she felt different. Each lead was an inkling of understanding, illuminating dark corners within her family's history. But there remained the question of her own moral responsibility. She was discovering fragments of her father's life that risked unraveling the comforting illusion she had held tightly. Hey, you look like you've seen a ghost, Beckett remarked, glancing up from his desk as she approached. It's clear this is about more than him, Sarah said quietly, wrestling with her growing awareness. I'm starting to see how deep the roots of this corruption go, but I'm afraid of what I might find in the end. What if he's not the man I thought? What falls apart then? Beckett nodded, his expression serious. The truth can often be brutal. It will challenge everything you think you know. Sarah shivered at his words. They pierced through the fabric of her confidence, mingling with dread and determination, a potent mix she couldn't ignore. The confrontation with her father loomed imminent, gathering weight and shape in her mind. Would she emerge as a defender of integrity, or would love blind her to the reality? I'm ready to face whatever comes next, she confessed, feeling an unyielding fire awaken within her that she hadn't expected. Then we'll prepare for the next phase, Beckett replied. We can't turn back now. Their eyes locked in mutual understanding, a bond forged in the heat of the unknown. But as Sarah returned home, she couldn't shake the potent implication of their unfinished business. What truths were still hidden? What layers of deception awaited her beneath the surface? And there, cradled in her thoughts, a daunting realization blossomed. Confronting her father wasn't merely about justice. It was a confrontation with the very essence of her identity. Would her pursuit of truth lead to liberation, or unwind her sense of self entirely? As night fell, shadows stretched long and dark across her path, echoing the weight of dread that hung heavy, but somehow ignited a flicker of hope. Would unraveling these truths reveal her true self, or would it simply deepen the shadows that lurked both in her past and present? The following morning was washed in gray light, the sky hanging heavy with the promise of rain as Sarah prepared for another day at the precinct. Her thoughts swirled, wrestling with reflections on her father and the choices he had made, weighed down under the gravity of the investigations ahead. It felt as if the air around her vibrated with expectation, the room itself alive with potential. Beckett was already at his desk, examining new leads and piecing together their next steps. He nodded as she entered, recognizing the tension in her eyes. Ready to tackle today's interviews? Ready as I'll ever be, she replied, mindful of the steel in her voice. Her resolve had become her armor, but the specters of uncertainty clung to her like mist. They had set appointments with 2 former associates of her father, each a piece of the puzzle she was intent on unraveling. The thought made her pulse quicken. Would these conversations reveal more than she anticipated? Would they challenge her understanding of loyalty and truth? The first meeting was with Graham, a former partner who had exited the firm under dubious circumstances. The coffee shop buzzed with chatter, but all Sarah could hear was the rapid thrum of her heartbeat as they approached his booth. He recognized them immediately, a flicker of wariness crossing his features. "Saw you on the news, Sarah," he said, voice tight. "Your father didn't deserve this. The mess, I mean." "Was it really a mess?" Sarah countered, surprised by how assertive she sounded, or just the truth coming to light. Graham shifted uncomfortably, his fingers fidgeting with the napkin. You don't know how deep this goes. Your father was involved in some things. Things like what? Was he a willing participant or a victim like Emma said? Her questions came out fueled by rage and desperation, fighting against the fog of her memories. He met her gaze solidly. He wanted to provide for you. But it wasn't just about the work. Victor Hayes had a way of pulling people into his orbit. They never see it until it's too late. A heavy silence settled between them. Sarah's world was spinning, grappling with the knowledge that her father's life was interwoven with something so much larger than herself. "Did you see him pressured?" she asked, her voice more a whisper now. Graham looked at her with pity. There were threats. Subtle at first, then not so much. I wouldn't be surprised if Victor had something over him. She felt a sickening churn in her stomach. The air was thick with revelations that shadowed her perception of her father. Her mind fragmented, loyalty battling with the urge to see him as a flawed man seeking redemption. After gathering what she could from Graham, she and Beckett hurried to meet the next interviewee, Lana, a compliance officer who had left the firm just after Graham. With every step, Sarah reflected on her staggering evolution. Each encounter reshaped her, challenging her ideas of right, wrong, and familial obligation. At the bar across town, Lana seemed more approachable, a forthright demeanor woven with familiarity. "Sarah, your father. He wasn't the man you think he was," she started before Sarah could sit. "He had this light, but when Victor arrived, it flickered." "Flickered, or was it extinguished?" Sarah pressed, feeling the tension weave through her veins, awakening a fierce need for clarity. "Was he a puppet, or did he play his part willingly?" Lana leaned closer, eyes narrowed. "It was both. Stoke the fire, then dampen it. He was intelligent, but there's a point where intelligence doesn't matter against someone like Hayes. Victor turned everything into a game, and your father, he was a player who didn't realize it." With those words, the dam inside Sarah cracked open, and the torrent of questions collided with frantic fears. What else was he hiding? How much of her isolated perception of him had been real? And more than that, was she willing to accept the truths she was now unearthing? As they stepped out, the sky threatened to break, mirroring the turmoil swelling within. Beckett clapped her shoulder reassuringly, grounding her amidst the storm of doubt. "We've uncovered what lies beneath his facade, but what's next is up to you." As they crossed the street back to the precinct, she felt the intensity of the moment eclipse every illusion she had clung to. She now stood at a crossroads, facing a choice that could fracture her world further, sending shattered pieces of her family loyalties tumbling into the abyss. The looming confrontation with her father gnawed at her. Would confronting him illuminate the truth, or merely deconstruct her remaining faith? In an unmistakable flash, a daunting realization surged. The truth was not only out there, it resided within her own heart. Would her identity withstand the force of emerging realities, or would she fold under the weight of new revelations? Determined, she squared her shoulders. As they reached the precinct's entrance, a wave of urgency washed over her. Time was running short. What awaited her when she sought answers from the man who had always been her hero? Would she discover the truth she longed for, or unearth a dark legacy that threatened to devour them both? The day of reckoning had arrived, and the air crackled with an expectant tension as Sarah stepped into the precinct's interrogation room. A blend of uncertainty and determination rippled through her. She was finally ready to confront her father regarding everything she had unearthed. With Officer Beckett beside her, the path toward truth opened like a doorway to a long enclosed chamber. She had spent countless nights wrestling with the implications of what she might find, the shadows of doubt still dancing around the edges of her resolve. Yet no matter how heavy the burden felt, certainty swelled within her. She would face her father, not just as a daughter, but as someone actively crafting her own narrative. As the door swung open, she found her father waiting on the other side, his figure cast in the monochrome shadows of the stark room. The man who had once been a comforting presence now seemed like a ghost of the ideals she had held so tightly. "Sarah," he said, his voice tinged with caution and weighted history. "Dad, we need to talk," she replied, her tone even and unyielding. The strength she had nurtured through the investigation pulsed through her words. He shifted uneasily, a flicker of apprehension sweeping across his features. I know things have been chaotic. My decisions. Chaotic is putting it mildly, she interjected, the fervor rising in her chest. I've spoken to your colleagues. They revealed things, dark things about Victor Hayes, about your involvement, about the choices you made. His expression tightened, but Sarah pressed on, unwilling to back down now. Did you really think you could keep these secrets hidden forever? They're unraveling, and I won't allow your legacy to rest on lies. Lies? Sarah, you don't understand, he began, desperation creeping into his voice. I was trying to protect you. I thought I could manage it all. Tension gripped her heart as she fought against the ache of betrayal that threatened to uproot her resolve. Protect me? Or protect yourself? Because it sounds an awful lot like you chose power over integrity while I've been left to pick up the pieces. The air hung thick with unsaid truths, a chasm widening between them. She could feel the gravity of the moment, a poignant reminder of the man she once idolized, now engulfed in choices that had spiraled far beyond their intended limits. Just tell me the truth, Dad, she implored, the vulnerability in her voice a direct contrast to the steely resolve that had brought her here. Were you coerced? Or did you willingly walk into this darkness? His silence told her everything. Everything she had feared. Everything she had wished against. I thought I could control it, he finally conceded, his voice pained. Victor offered power and promises. He knew my ambition, and I believed I could handle it. But things went too far. I didn't want to admit how far. What is it going to take for you to own up to your mistakes? She asked, her voice level but laced with emotion. Lives hang in the balance, including mine. For a moment, despair washed over him, then a flicker of something lifelike ignited in his eyes, a yearning for redemption, perhaps. I didn't want you to carry the burden, he said, stumbling toward the truth as if it were an anchor in a storm. I guess I failed you on many levels. You didn't just fail me, Sarah responded, direct but not unkind. You painted a picture of our lives that was built on secrets and deceptions, and it's time we face that together. Not just for us, but for everyone your legacy has impacted. Each word fell heavy as they hung between them, the momentum shifting as she noticed a new light beginning to unfurl in their dialogue. This vulnerability she demanded was not just for her, it was for him to confront too. But we can't change the past unless we embrace it. We can't make things right unless you own your narrative. He nodded slowly, the acceptance of his shortcomings a tangible weight lifting the air around them. You're right. I've tried to hide, tried to protect you from all of this. But I never realized it would harm you more to keep the truth hidden. They sat in the shimmering silence of a new understanding, one laced with both sorrow and a flickering sense of rebirth. Her heart beat with a rhythm of hope, budding from the ashes of their shared struggle. She had come here vulnerable, but by confronting her father, she was fortifying her identity, and he, perhaps, was finding his way back to himself. What do we do now? He asked, a hesitant timbre threading through his voice. I'll work with Officer Beckett to pursue the truth, whatever that entails. I'll bring light to whatever darkness existed, but I need you. It can't be just me taking steps forward. As she spoke, she felt the contours of her identity solidifying into something undeniably steadfast. They were mutually accountable now, no longer merely father and daughter lost in pain, but partners navigating fluid, uncharted waters. I'll help you, he replied searchingly, the promise in his voice urging conviction. If this is truly the path you've decided on, as difficult as it may be, I'll stand beside you. Together, we'll face it all. Releasing the breath she didn't know she was holding, Sarah felt a renewed sense of agency, the path ahead swirling with unrelenting potential. Their conversation wasn't merely an acceptance of the past, it marked the beginning of a collaborative journey, a rebirth within a landscape of shadows. By reclaiming her narrative, confronting her father's past, she wasn't just stepping away from fear, she was proclaiming through action that there was a way through. The murkiness wouldn't suffocate her dreams, but propel them. As she walked out of the precinct, she felt an energy surging in her veins, a surge of clarity and purpose. The truth they would unveil could uncover a legacy transformed, one rooted in love, faced with accountability, and forged anew in resilience. The sun peeked through the clouds as she emerged, casting a warm glow over Willow Creek. It wasn't simply a goodbye to a rewarding past, it was a hello to a revolutionary future. She was more than just her father's daughter. She became the woman who dared to step into the light of honesty. She turned, glancing back at her father, and for the first time in too long she smiled. It wasn't a simple reassurance. It was reassurance embodied in progress, newfound understanding, and a partnership she never thought possible, a chance to rewrite their story together. The journey had morphed from confronting ghosts levied by shadows into substantial growth, thriving in the unity of overcoming odds. She had begun as a scared daughter but emerged renewed, a resilient woman boldly claiming her legacy. This was her moment. You need to subscribe now to witness how everyday people redefine their future and reclaim their narratives. Leave a like now to empower this content and allow it to inspire many who are lost in their stories. Comment with your thoughts, revelations, and personal connections to this transformative journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to embrace their truths and step into their light.